who is Larry Jacob? And we have people calling our phone at the office and asking for this guy named Larry who doesn't exist. I've had customers come up, customers I've been working with for a long time, address me as Dear Larry in their emails to me. So apparently our branding is working okay. But I'm very proud to be called Larry because the naming of my company was something that was very special to me. I have to rewind the clock back over 100 years. My grandfather was born in Cuba. He was one of 12 children from a very poor rural family, and at the age of 9 he was an orphan. To make things worse, he was not a very healthy kid. He is asthmatic. Back then there weren't really treatments for that. He was very short and he wasn't very physically fit. So as a result, hard labor was just not an option for him. He had to use his wits. And he did a very good job. He was very business savvy. In 1959, he had a business empire that consisted of a sausage factory. He had a cracker mill factory, and that's a common staple in Cuba. He had several car dealerships, Cadillac among them, and he had large tracts of home, residential homes in Varadero Beach, which to this day is probably one of the most spectacular beaches in the Caribbean. The reason I bring this up is because 1960 was probably not one of the highlights of his life, because early that year, Castro and his communist regime took over the country. So because he was wealthy and he had a lot of businesses, all of his assets were confiscated, nationalized in the name of the revolution, and he found himself in a country where he didn't know the language at the age of 59 with 6 children, my dad being the oldest of them at 17, my aunt being 9. And he had to start all over again. I never met him or knew him as an adult because he passed away when I was 6. But what I've heard from him is that despite the fact that he was super poor when he got here, he was just as generous back in Cuba, in Miami, when he was poor as he was before. It was just part of his nature. When we would go visit Grandma and Grandpa's house, there were always these people we didn't know. And we wondered, who are they? And they were family members, relatives, family friends that were coming from Cuba, transitioning to the United States, trying to cope, and they wanted to make that transition just a little more smoother, using what little they had to share with other people. My grandfather was never someone to get down on things. He had a very deep-rooted faith. My grandmother really worked on him. He was very devout Catholic. And my aunts would share with me that they would go to bed listening to them, praying the rosary every evening. And if you're Catholic like I am, that is something that's really tough to do. It's a discipline that you develop, but it was crucial to them. I've already shared with you his generosity, but he was a very big proponent of hard work, both in your business to provide for your family, but also to be there emotionally for your family. I inherited a lot of that through my dad because he never missed a baseball game. He put up with all my swimming competitions as I was in junior high and high school, and he wanted to make sure he was there for me. He showed up here at the age of 17, and he had an employer that he said he had, and at the age of 17 he asked him, hey, what's your name? And in his broken Spanish he says, Lazaro. And from that day forward he was Larry. So I named my company after him. My grandfather's name is Jacob, or Jacobo, Jacob in Spanish. So the name of the business is Larry Jacob. And we're much more than just a company that's delivering services, technology services. We're one that's trying to not only satisfy our customers, but satisfying the man upstairs, our Lord. Because I want to be much more than someone that gets referrals from highly satisfied customers. I want to be someone that sees the way I've lived my life, the way I treat my employees, the way we deliver to clients, and say, there's something about him and his people